Baked Alaska, what did Scott say is the definition of an eyewitness account? I want to make sure
Well,
it's very clear.
I think what he said is like if somebody personally witnesses something through their own perception, like an event taking place,
Right. And
that
then reports it.
and then reports it, right.
Right.
And then my question was if there's an intermediary person, so they're not directly reporting it to you, they report it to a third party, maybe a police officer, maybe another person, and it gets introduced via that third party. And I think Scott said then that no longer makes it an eyewitness claim, unless I'm mistaken.
Is he mistaken, Scott?
I think that may be a little bit mistaken because, like, if I speak to a police officer, he's writing down directly from my mouth to his ears, and he's writing it down.
Okay.
Is that what's happening with the Bible?
Well, I think so. I think what we have are written reports of other eyewitness claims that were communicated to the apostles. And so let me ask you this. Do you think that when you said there was one eyewitness, was that Paul or who was your?
Paul is the one that comes to mind.
Yeah. So I mean, the way I look at it is as long as you trust the person, like in the example with the police officer, like we have reasons to believe, and it's not always the case. I mean, the police they're often, totally corrupt, but we have, as a general matter, we have reasons to believe that they're reliable. And so if you have a trusted source relaying the eyewitness claim, the fact that the eyewitness is not the author of the gospel, to me, is not dispositive. It would be better if it was, but it just doesn't. It doesn't turn it into. It doesn't mean that they're not eyewitnesses.
Well, I'm going to jump in here and give my point of view, and you can ask me questions, and Scott can tell me if he agrees with me. But I love your police officer analogy. But the way I see the Gospels is that police officer may or may not be trustworthy. But we definitely know, to make it a good analogy, we know the police officer is dead. And we know that the police officer didn't sign his report or date it. And for me, he could still be trustworthy if I was to have a time machine and go back and talk to him, but I have no reason to just take his word for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and just so I'm clear, the police officer is that the people writing the gospel?
Yes.
In this? Okay. And you were saying that. So what were the facts that you're saying that they died? Well, I'm trying to understand the relevance of them dying, like where that comes in.
Well, because we can't, since the police officer didn't sign or date or cite his sources or whatever on his little notepad,
right?
We can't go back to him because he's dead now and ask.
I see.
Yeah, we can't ask him questions. Basically, there's no chance to verify.
To cross-examine.
Yeah.
No, fair enough.
Most of history is like that, which is why I brought up the history, but then also the fact that we're talking about extraordinary claims versus mundane claims. Like if somebody asks me about it, or if I read something about Alexander the Great crossing the Rubicon, okay, great. Whether he was the son of God is a whole other question.
It seems like your definition of eyewitness and our definition of eyewitness is different, right?
Yeah, I think so. I wonder if you guys are being a little narrow with your definition, just because.
Well, maybe we are. But let me ask you this: which standard we have? Your definition is something like that police officer still counts as eyewitness account because he's relaying an eyewitness account.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Out of our definition and your definition, which definition is more stringent? More
yours.
Ours.
Yeah.
So I guess when it comes to something as important as one's eternal salvation, should we go with the easier bar to get over or the harder bar to get over? In other words, should we go with the most stringent definition or the more lax one?
Well, I mean, this goes back to like Pascal's wager, or just like that issue in terms of like the stakes being so high. why would you apply, like, just even for pragmatic purposes?
There's just one chance in a billion, we should believe. Would you accept your definition of eyewitness account if it was something really, really important about someone you loved? For example, think of someone you love in your head, and they're accused of murder. They are accused of murdering someone. And the evidence we have is your definition of eyewitness account or ours. Which one would you prefer in that case?
Well, in that case, I would want yours.
Right. I think we're done here, Baked Alaska.
No, but that's an important that's an important distinction. Like, our judicial system is designed to keep the innocent person out of jail, not to punish the guilty person. Whether, like, with the court system, like, we have, like, like, rules, like hearsay is meant to keep things out of court because the declarant who makes the hearsay statement isn't available for cross-examination. So there's no way of getting to pinning that statement that's made out of court.
So you're saying we shouldn't, like, view this as a court thing?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I'm saying.
So we shouldn't bring up women's testimony wasn't allowed in court, and that's women were first to tomb. We should not bring that up either then.
No, but isn't that a case for...
What you're doing there.